G'day, welcome to the first episode of Beyond the Pass. In this episode, we'll be discussing what to look out for in new employers, getting paid, getting your qualifications, moving kitchens, looking for new jobs, learning foreign cuisines, and a lot more. So if you're an industry professional, or if you're just starting out in the hospitality industry and this seems like something that might interest you, please stay tuned and I hope you enjoy it. G'day guys, how's it going? Welcome to Beyond the Pass podcast. I am your host, Chef Alex Pillen. I've been a chef for about 10 odd years now and been working within the hospitality industry for well over that, probably more than 15 years. So about at least half my life I've worked in the hospitality industry in some way, shape or form, some capacity. So welcome. Pretty much this is going to be me just ranting and raving to you as if you're an apprentice in a kitchen, but with a little less yelling and probably about the same amount of swearing. But pretty much I've noticed that the industry has taken a turn for a completely different trajectory to where it was when I started, and that is absolutely fine. That is progress. That is life. These things happen. I don't actually know why I'm wearing these. These things happen. That's life. That's progress. Things change. Nothing ever stays the same. And that's what we want, right? And this industry has always been full of change, and we're always looking for the latest trend, the latest, newest thing. So we're not worried about change. We're not scared of change. We have to just adapt to it, right? So what has changed? Basically, we're in a world post-COVID. We're in a world that saw a lot of the industry hit pretty hard for a couple of years, especially a lot of mum and pop type grassroots restaurants, cafes, and things like that. Not so worried about the large groups and inner city restaurants that sort of are run by gigantic companies, huge conglomerates that don't sort of need to worry about the money. But, you know, your mum and pop restaurant, the people who are employing probably most of the chefs got hit pretty hard and it shook up the industry quite a bit. On top of that, we're also in this sort of anti-work movement part of the world, time of history rather, which is, I think, really cool personally. I think more power to everybody to be able to demand what you want and be able to sort of know your rights and demand that you get treated equally and evenly. But there is a little bit of a clash, unfortunately, with regards to the restaurants or the reality of working in the restaurant industry and sort of some of the expectations of these people. The quiet quitting, I'll do the job I get paid for and nothing more sort of mentality can be a little bit of an issue in kitchens, especially in large teams. One individual doing that can definitely become sort of an outlier in the team and can definitely bring things down. But hey, each to their own. The industry that we're in that's not really that conducive to success within the industry. Unfortunately, it's part of becoming a chef is realizing the passion and realizing the die-hard love for it, and that you'll almost do just about anything to kick the goal, ensure that you're able to complete the tasks and be successful, whatever that might mean, whether it's during prep service, etc. There's a certain go above and beyond expectation, a particular passion that is required to be successful in the industry. And I hope maybe this is just my sort of more old school thinking, but I feel like I'm sort of maybe in between two generations of the very, very old school and the new school guy, and hopefully I can find a middle ground. But I do feel that there does need to be a certain die-hard love and passion for this. Otherwise, it's not going to be the best fit for you. And the reason that is that it is a reality that we work 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. We do that. Sometimes it's 30 and that's great. But more often than not, it's 40 or 50. And then when it's busy at 60, 70, 80 plus, I've personally worked more than an 80-hour week. I know the highest I've ever heard is 117 hours. For reference, I think there's 168 hours in a week. So that person I've had very little sleep, clearly. This is somebody I've worked for. And yes, these sorts of things aren't as acceptable. Nobody sees that as an acceptable thing to make somebody do. And to be fair, the person who did do that, they were doing it in their own business. So they were the one who had everything to gain from doing that. I think maybe 94 hours is like sort of my largest week, and that included several weddings and a couple of almost 20-hour shifts. And I wasn't, unfortunately, I wasn't the owner of the business, and I wasn't working for myself. I was working for somebody else. And to be fair, I did get absolutely fucked over by the end of that work relationship, which I will eventually get into. These are sort of things that I want to talk about, and maybe I should just quickly go over some of those things. I do want to talk about the state of the industry and where we are currently with regards to the way people view their position, the way people view what they should be or what can be expected or should be expected of them, and sort of our battle between that at the moment, because there is a huge shift, and I've noticed it more and more within the last couple of years, and I do absolutely recognise that is also a result of my situation, my circumstance, where I am, places that I've found myself working as well. So there's absolutely a realisation that it's not across the board everywhere, and there are different, I guarantee there are people watching this who work in kitchen who are full of a huge team of passionate young people who absolutely love what they do. And they'll jump in front of a fucking bus if it meant it getting service done and done efficiently and well. I know those crews are still out there, and I know that absolutely still exists, but I've also worked in quite a few kitchens now with people within multiple different generations who just don't care, who quite frankly don't seem to want to be there, who think that it's an absolute waste of their time, and they don't see the passion and the love that goes into this, the hours and hours of graft that are required. A lot of people who can't finish or won't finish apprenticeships, who RPL things and don't put themselves in through the actual process and don't go through the hierarchy. And I know, again, old school thinking. Anybody who wants to do this, who has a passion for it, absolutely should try and can. I don't want to be gatekeeping anything. If you have loved cooking all your life, but you've never gone and done an apprenticeship, and you have the money to do it, by all means, buy a restaurant and start cooking in it. Absolutely. The more the merrier, I think, in the industry. I'm not going to gatekeep anything, but you do really need to recognize the realities of working in the industry, that it is a hard grind, and there is a huge expectation to be successful here is not the same as being successful in other commerce. It's not the same as being successful in a roofing business, say, for example, or a fencing business or whatever. There's a huge grind. Every hour that your business is open, it usually is dealing with the public, and there's an instantaneous delivery requirement to our product, right? So if I'm a fencer, I can go and quote that guy. I can give him a time frame. I can get another job done between it. I probably get paid some of the job, or at least some of the material costs for the next job before I even started, right? None of that exists in hospitality or in a restaurant industry whatsoever. You don't get those opportunities to have a time frame like that. The time frame is instant. The linear movement of your day is very, very important to ensure that you're able to get everything done that you need to get done and deliver a product in a very short time frame to a very expecting customer. And short of building somebody a house or selling somebody a house or renting somebody a property or anything like that, food is something that people put this huge amount of love into when they're consuming it, right? And totally understandably, I mean, we should be creating memories and moments as well as actually creating food and creating that special time. People sit down and to enjoy a meal together, and more often than not, depending on the type of establishment you're working at, people are there celebrating important milestones and things that happen in their life. So of course, they have an emotion and a passion attached to the dining experience. And so we need to recognize that and deliver on that as well in a very, very short time frame. There's a few transactions that people do, retail or shopping, grocery shopping or clothes shopping, such a different experience and expectation compared to, say, shopping for food or a restaurant or somewhere to eat. And our experience that we provide to them is so important. It's the backbone almost of what we are actually doing. And I see more and more now a lot of front of house staff, especially who don't have that love or passion or compassion for the customer, and the care and the drive and the want to create an experience for them. So I walk out into the restaurant. I go beyond the pass. Sometimes I go and grab a drink, and I'll just stop and look around the restaurant, and I'll sort of look at the 40s, say, and I'll see a family over there, and there's a mum, dad, and a couple of kids, and they're creating a memory, and they're having a special moment with their children, with their mum, with their dad, with their brother, with their sister, and they're creating something beautiful, and something I didn't actually get as often, maybe, as some people growing up. And every moment like that I can think of, that I can remember, I really enjoy and appreciate. And I loved sharing a seafood basket for two with my old man, having a counter meal at the local pub. All those little moments, they were really, really special to me and to my family. And especially for us, we didn't have a lot of money, so going out was that much more special. And I'm sure for my parents, spending that money, they would hope that the experience that they had and that we had was one that would create a good, fond memory. And to ensure that the food and quality of everything was high, or to a better standard than we can do at our home, because that little bit of money that we're spending or the customer's spending might be the only little bit of money that they have to splurge on that sort of thing for the next month or year, or whatever the circumstance might be. We take such for granted the idea of working in restaurants. We take such for granted the idea of eating in them, and the time spent there. I know we sort of desensitize ourselves to it, but going out and eating in a restaurant is supposed to still be a special thing. And I think as the world gets more and more pricey, inflation is crazy with everything, and everything's going up. I think as that continues to happen, going out and dining in restaurants will become even more special, and we'll probably only see two types of restaurants, which will be quick service restaurants, McDonald's and things like that, or restaurants that cater for a higher price, basically. And the in-between sort of thing will become less and less prominent, or it'll become for the sort of wealthier people. Perhaps I'll be wrong. And perhaps it's up to one of us, somebody who's watching this, or me, or anybody, to innovate around that and to help to continue to bring access to food for people. You look all over the world and you see restaurants and small cafes, little street vendors and eateries that create these individual special moments. And so hopefully there'll be progress in the Western world where, say, in America, you've got New York hot dog street vendors, and I do believe it's pretty expensive. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's the cheapest thing to be able to just become a hot dog street vendor in New York and start renting a space and selling hot dogs there. But there's a culture for it, and it does exist, which I think is awesome. Same with, say, Thailand, India, wherever you might go where there's a great culture of street vendors. We have it here in the Southern Hemisphere, but more often than not, it's food vans, shipping containers, little market stalls and things like that. But I think there will be a window for, there'll be an opening soon for the little hot dog vendor, the small start out, the little stalls, kiosks, etc., that can be run by one or two people who are grassroots, building up from nothing and starting out reasonably modestly and building to something even better. I think that, I hope that we are starting to see a little bit more of that movement within the industry and within especially the Southern Hemisphere, Australia and New Zealand, because we don't have a lot of that. The restrictions on licensing and things like that are quite strict depending on where you are, state for state in Australia. They can be quite strict, and it can be quite difficult to start something small. But we also get this sort of idea as chefs and people who work for restaurateurs that you can't have your own thing, you can't start your own thing, and if you want to, you're going to need to have, say, 250 grand US or something to be able to actually start anything. That's not true. But they will have you think that. People who you work for will have you think that it is almost an unattainable goal to open your own restaurant, and don't believe that at all. Maybe it's unattainable with what they're paying you, but it's not actually that unattainable of a goal. That brings me to another point, though. Due to this post-COVID world where we've had this sort of huge shake-up of restaurants opening and closing, people losing their jobs, people not wanting to be vaccinated, people getting vaccinated. Shit, to be honest, is all over the place and has been for a little while. There is currently such a high demand for qualified, skilled chefs, which I've actually never seen the likes of before in my entire career. There's people I know getting paid $40+ an hour, senior chef position, not even a sous chef or a head chef. There's people out there getting paid $25+ to do dishes in restaurants. The industry is struggling so much for people that it is actually an amazing time to go out there and get your worth, to get your crust, and find somebody who will pay you what you're worth. Whether or not that's through upward movement within where you are, which I'm going to tell you straight away is not the way to get more money. That person who is making you promises constantly, who hasn't actually increased your wage the 3 years that you've worked for them, who tells you you'll get this and that and the other, they're probably going to fuck you over. Don't listen to that. Don't allow somebody to suck you into something that isn't written on paper, that isn't set in concrete and stone. The restaurant industry changes very, very, very quickly. Financial circumstances can change very easily. Don't allow people to make these false promises to you. If you're looking for more money, put it all on the table. Tell your restaurateur that you're going to find another job or start looking for more work, and this is the money that you're looking for. Maybe don't tell them, it depends on your situation, but if you can tell them and you think that will get more money out of them, let them know. But if you don't tell them. But when you're applying for new jobs and you're looking for more work, tell them what you're earning, or at least tell them the minimum that you expect to be earning on your movement. That you always want to get more from that next person. And maybe you'll only be there for 4, 5, 6 months, but do the 5, 6 months and then look for another job and try and get another $2 or $3 out of it each time, asking for a little bit more. That's really the only way, unless you're working for some amazing people. It's really the only way that you're going to get consistent increases in pay here. And now that the industry is in a sort of point in history where we are getting $35 to $40 pays an hour, and that's not even working in sort of the finest of places, we are able to get the push and get those better amounts, get that better pay. So and keep moving, keep asking. Don't take no for an answer. Don't listen to the person who you've been working for 3 or 4 years who has never increased your wage and doesn't. They probably won't. Or if they tell you that you'll get a percentage or anything like that, get everything written down. Never listen to these empty promises. Actions are the only things that mean anything. Don't listen to people who tell you this. I've been stung myself plenty of times. In fact, the first time I was working for somebody that I considered a friend that I'd known for the better part. By the time I stopped working for them, I'd known them for the better part of 6 years. And they had promised me everything in the world, but never got more than sort of a handshake and a promise on it. I never got anything written down or on paper. And, they talked about taking a bit of a pay cut to be able to support the business. Basically, the way that they were paying me, regardless of the status of full-time, this, that, or the other, was on a scale of the money that the business had taken in that period of time, something that he had kept pretty secretive from me. I mean, unless I was actually writing down the figures and paying attention to everything, I was really having the wool pulled over my eyes. I hadn't had really the full opportunity to ensure that there was any system whatsoever to the amount he was paying me. But essentially, if we had a really good week, my pay would be a bit more. If we had a bad week, my pay would be less, and I just sort of had to accept that, which stupid on my behalf, I know, but what I thought I was working towards was a percentage of the business and our future, and something that we'd be able to do together and something that we'd be able to build up and do together. But ultimately, as things got, for me at least, more difficult, the expectation on me, I mean, the business was essentially failing when I first started working for this person, and then through my very, very, very hard work and commitment, and absolutely they put in work and commitment as well, but they were not the person who was in the kitchen almost every day, prepping up, ensuring that we had all the ingredients, going on stock runs, etc. They were also doing other things, and at one point they had taken an extended holiday in which I ensured to run the business completely for them, and got just a plethora of things and times where I wasn't sort of reasonably or fairly compensated, and things weren't as the person wasn't sort of treating me as much of a part of or a partner in the business as they sort of were just taking advantage of me. I don't really want to digress or delve into it too much, but basically this person fucked me over. By the time I decided that I wasn't going to be able to cope mentally working and putting in the hours and the amount of stress that it was causing me, with very, very, very little reward. I could sort of barely pay for my life, what I was doing, my lifestyle, my house, etc. And this is, fucking over 6 years ago now. So even then, with the price of rents, it was very, very hard to ensure that I had a decent quality of life and was able to help run this business. And ultimately, I thought that I was going to get something out of it, but by the time I'd finished, I decided to resign. And once I had resigned, they went from being quite nice to me the sort of day that I sent my resignation in, within about 12 hours of me saying that I forgot to mention that once I had resigned, they told me not to return. So my response to that was to pay me out my last 2 weeks, which is a requirement in Australia, as well as unless I work them, if they tell me to leave, they are required to pay it, as well as pay me for any holidays, etc., because I hadn't actually taken time off for any holidays. And they instantly got absolutely disgusting, involved their lawyers. The next time I heard back from them was from their lawyers. And so, yeah, they just started to pretty much go that route after years and years of me dedicating my life to them and everything to try and help build their business, which ended up being quite successful by the time I had left. And we extended our hours, we had extended our crew by multiple people, and we were going quite well. And some of the people from there have continued and moved on and become quite successful in their own rights within the industry. Unfortunately, I think at least one of them's still there, and I'm sure that the person I worked over before will fuck him over eventually. I'm absolutely sure of that, mate. I'm sorry to say it, but you probably will find yourself being in the same position that I was, irregardless of how many more years later it is. So look out for that. And yeah, when I responded, my response was pretty much exactly what you would expect a chef, a person who's passionate about what they do, and passionate about their time and their abilities. I went as atomic as I could on them, and I kind of wish I went more. Slated them online, had them remove the reviews aspect of their pages, because fuck them. If they don't have me, they don't have good reviews. And they've since moved. I think they've changed names of the restaurants and done different things. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with their shit anymore. But at the end of the day, this person totally, absolutely blindsided me and fucked me over. Took a couple of years of my life. And yeah, like there was a lot of fun moments and good times, but they absolutely put a very, very, very foul taste in my mouth for a lot of people in the industry and a lot of restaurateurs in general. They're not your friends. I'll make sure you guys know that. Me and the person I currently work for are on a very, very good page of where our relationship is, and they're aware that me and them aren't friends. We are in a professional relationship, and that is what is expected of both of us. It's written down on paper, those papers are signed, and we understand and what we are expecting from our relationship. And for anything further than that, we obviously would then discuss with each other what we expect from it, and get it down on paper and ensure that that's signed and we're all in agreement of that. So that's a key thing in this industry that I really urge all of you to do, is to please absolutely ensure for yourself that everything is written down. No handshakes. Don't take their word on it. You need to see action, and you need to have things written down and communicated. Otherwise, given the opportunity, they will fuck you over. I can absolutely promise you that. Another quick anecdote, people I was working for, pretty soon after that first one, I had relocated to about 2,500 kilometers, maybe a little under that, but roughly 2,500 kilometers relocated for them. came on as a sous chef, and then ended up being a manager of another one of their establishments. All well and good. Paid reasonably well. Never really messed me around too much. On the pay side of things, they were always the first to happily give me cash bonuses and things like that. Things seemed really well, but these guys sort of pulled the wool over my eyes in that sense. So they were quite wealthy, appeared quite wealthy, and had been definitely quite well off at different points in their lives. But they were people who came from the business world and thought that they wanted to get into the hospitality world. So they bought a venue and for a family member, but ended up running it themselves. Not really running it themselves, but just being there as an annoyance. And working for them was quite rewarding in a lot of ways. And as I said, a lot of cash bonuses. They paid me well. But the way that they sort of pulled the wool over my eyes is that I was working my absolute arse off for them. I wasn't taking holidays, paid time off by any means, days in lieu or anything like that. I wasn't using them up, even sick days, really, to be fair. And I ended up with literally hundreds of hours, like probably about $20,000 worth of unpaid leave. And for the first guys as well, I mean, if I went through at one point through all my pay slips and worked out the hours and the time, and there was minimum of sort of $6,000-$7,000, maybe more worth of unpaid leave and holiday hours and things like that. If I had time off, when usually the time off for that first example, it was doing things like catering a wedding for a friend. So we closed the restaurant, which meant I had time off for that, but because I was also attending, but I wasn't paid for the time that I was doing the wedding through the person who I was employed for, and I wasn't paid because I wasn't at work for the 3 or so days as well. So things like that. Absolutely, you don't want to find yourself in situations like that. But back to the more recent people. Post my quitting, I said to them basically that, I have a lot of hours of overtime and this and that have not been paid out, and easily the minimum that would be owed to me from employers such as that would be somewhere in the fields of sort of $25,000 to $30,000. That's sort of probably conservative. If you were looking at it in terms of like what should be paid in actual overtime, time and a half and things like that, is probably a bit more than that. But the sort of long and short of all of that is that you don't want to find yourself in these situations. So get things on paper, take your time off, take your holidays when you can, or have them paid out progressively. Don't let them get too over the top, because at the end of it, when you put in that resignation, people can change pretty quickly. They might seem lovely and friendly to you at first or during the time, but it's like a switch. The people change very, very quickly. As I said, the first guy I knew for at least 6 years before I had actually given my final resignation, and he changed overnight as soon as I mentioned that money thing. And, my last 2 weeks, plus at least I'd been working for him for almost 3 years, 2.5 or 3 years. And so I was requested as well to, have my holiday pay from those times that I'd never ended up taking. And as soon as that came up, total 180 degree on me, went and started becoming litigious and started becoming an absolute prick. So look out for that. You don't trust it. Look out for yourself and move when you can. People, they're not your friends. They're not your family. Try and look out for yourself. If you can find another job that's paying you more, go for that job. Move. Change your world. Change your life. I say it to people all the time. If you change your reality where you are, your world where you're living, everything will change. Everything around it will change. Move to another city. Get a different job somewhere else. This is the great thing about hospitality and the industry, being a chef especially, and that's why you should get your qualification as well. I know you can do it without it, or you can pretty much, as long as you can do the job, you'll get a job anywhere. It doesn't really matter about that piece of paper, but you should still finish it up, because you'll be able to pretty much go anywhere in the world. I'm born in Australia, but I've been living and working in New Zealand now for the better part of 2.5, coming on 3 years. And it was due to the fact that I had my qualification, worked for a temp company and was sent over here. And now the opportunities that I've found here are endless, and they will only become greater and greater. So change where you are and what you're doing. If you're not feeling happy, or if it's been sort of your passion's being sucked out, maybe it's time to make a move. Maybe it's time to make a change. But at the end of the day, if you're being promised pay rises, or if you're being promised this and that, and you're never ever seeing it, or you're never getting a piece of paper with it written down on it so you can sign it, and they keep a copy and you keep a copy, always keep a copy of everything as well. If that's not happening, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. It's probably never going to happen. It's probably never going to change. That person is almost absolutely 100% in it for themselves, and they only see you as a number on a screen, a statistic, or they don't see you as a human being. Probably not. You are just somebody who's there doing a job for them. So I know, again, all of this is doesn't apply everywhere and for everything, but you really do need to look after number one, and that is you. And don't ever forget that. It's very, very important. It's one of the most important things in this industry. So hopefully you sort of have a bit of an idea now about me, and you heard a couple of my anecdotes regarding the industry so far. I promise that they're not all going to be sort of that on the sort of shittier side of things. I've definitely had some great times, and within those two examples, there were some moments of absolute fantastic cookery, food, and moments that I absolutely loved. But unfortunately, they left a very, very bad taste in my mouth. And at one point, I wasn't actually considering ever working for another restaurateur again. I was actually just going to try and push into doing this full time. But it's not easy to do this with no money. So unfortunately, I had to fall back into it. And the way I did, where I am at the moment, I'm quite happy, and I will be here for a little bit longer. So that's great. And I'm making absolutely banging money, so I can't complain with my current setup. But if you're not, look for something different, look for something new, keep moving. It's not a problem. It's not a bad thing. Varied experience. And obviously that's let's be realistic. Don't fucking work in a new restaurant every week or month. That just looks stupid. But if you can find somewhere and learn what they've got to show you for 6 months to a year or so, and then you can find the next place, and the next place will move up through the hierarchy, etc., you'll be able to improve your career, improve your skills, develop yourself as a person, and be able to get better at selling yourself, learn new things. The thing about kitchens is every kitchen has a different way of doing something, and so there's always a new thing to learn wherever it's a new method or system, a way of doing something, whatever. You will learn something new, and you will take it with you, and you will show other people, and you will trade that knowledge, and you'll trade those skills, which is also another beautiful thing about doing this and about moving through to different restaurants and different places. And different cuisines. There's so much to experience and explore out there. I'd say there's no shortage of high quality Japanese restaurants in most major cities. If you're interested in that, or Italian or something, there's no shortage of high quality eateries where you can go and learn some of the traditional methodologies and develop new skills and new cooking styles, new recipes, etc. So those sorts of things, those opportunities are only going to come up if you make them come up. Very rarely do people just hand these things to you on a silver platter, especially in this industry, because it is still dog eat dog. It's pretty competitive out there. Most chefs who are really still very passionate about it are very, very passionate about it. That's the other thing that we have, I think, currently in this world of change that we've seen, where you are seeing a lot more people who are just in the industry passing through, or maybe thought it was for them, but it just doesn't fit with their sort of world ethos and the way that they believe people should be treated, or how things should happen. On the flip side of that, we're seeing also people who are insanely passionate about this industry and insanely skilled, and their abilities in the kitchen are absolutely fucking mesmerizing. And the internet is to thank for that as well, because we are able now to watch things back, upskill, learn things that we would have never been able to learn. We're able to use this medium to teach each other things. So we are seeing a huge development and change as well within the industry of people who are so passionate and so learned and intelligent and skilled, who don't even need to necessarily leave their hometown to develop those skills either. Never before in history have we had such huge access to information and recipes. So use that as your advantage as well if you're looking at trying to sort of break into a different cuisine or a part of the industry that sort of you haven't been exposed to yet. Then you can expose yourself to it using YouTube and Pinterest or whatever you find the best to use. You can find all of that information online, and you can teach yourself and give yourself that extra hand so that when you put your foot in that door, it's not just shut on it, right? You're 100% the master of your destiny in that. So the tools are there. It's all up to you pretty much. And to take these opportunities, to look for them. It's even within your apprenticeship. If you're in your first year of your apprenticeship, maybe stay at the one place for at least 1 year, but don't be scared of moving that around. I think I moved to at least 2, maybe 3 restaurants before I'd finished. That's right, I'd moved to my third restaurant, but I was also running that restaurant by the time I had started that part of my apprenticeship, my third year of my apprenticeship. And that's due to the fact that I just had a leg up in the industry. I worked at McDonald's for close to 4 or 5 years. I guess it was about 4 years, and did my hospitality retail management diploma. So I had a good idea of how restaurants and kitchens ran, and costs of goods and food safety and all those sorts of things. Already I did still move 3 times, and all 3 times were quite different cuisines. Definitely worth doing that even within your apprenticeship, as long as you just finish the fucking thing, okay? Don't ever, like, I don't understand why people start them and don't finish them. It's not hard. It doesn't take very long. You can expedite the whole process and get it done in like 18 months if you want to. And it's just about getting it done, sitting down, filling out the bookwork. There's a couple of things that take a little bit longer. You have to do X amount of services and this and that, but it's not that hard. It really isn't. It's really silly if you don't finish it, because you will, I guarantee, find yourself having to RPL it. If you don't have that piece of paper that you're not able to do certain things. Say, for example, you don't finish your apprenticeship, but you skill up to being good enough to work in the kitchen, and maybe even you're good enough to be the head chef and run the kitchen. You've done it for 4 or 5 years. You want to go out and do it on your own, then you have to actually do the food safety component that you would have already done in your apprenticeship. And if you had have done it in your apprenticeship and gotten that piece of paper, all they need to do is check that code and say, yep, you're qualified to do that, blah, so on and so forth. Always finish it. If you can't finish it, try and RPL it later. It will cost you a bit of money, but get the fucking certificate. It's not that fucking hard. And then as well, if you want to RPL Cert 4s, etc., and keep moving up and up, do it, fine. Or say New Zealand have quite a few good programs for helping you to advance yourself in your qualifications and careers, and benefits to that as well. So take advantage, look for opportunities, whether it be through technical colleges and things like that, to be able to better advance yourself. Because at the end of the day, when it becomes your business and your own thing, then you're going to have the skills and the knowledge there already to be able to pass on to other people, and also to use to run whatever it is that you end up running. So just do it. Get the fucking thing, all right? It's not hard. Obviously, there's so many variables in this that there's not just one rule for a certain thing, right? But at the end of the day, if you don't get it, you will regret it at some stage. Maybe it'll be that you see a new job that you want, and it's like your dream job, but they will not hire anybody no matter how many years of experience, unless they have at least maybe even just their food safety certificate, whatever. You know, there will be a time where you find you require it and you'll slightly regret not having it. I'm sure of it. So I've been rambling on for a little while now, about 40, 50 minutes, and I will cut this down, and I'll try and maybe look at about 30 minutes worth of content here. And this was sort of just to dust the cobwebs off for myself a little bit of just sitting here and talking to essentially to nobody. So this sort of was a good way to start, get some momentum moving forward for that, introduce myself a little bit and just show you guys who I am and give you an idea of my experience. You don't have to take everything I say as advice or listen to me at all whatsoever if you've gotten this far in. In fact, I'm kind of surprised because I have just sort of been rambling on about myself really, but that is sort of what this is all about, who I am, and sort of welcome to the channel. I've got another channel as well, which is called Lex Master Chef, where I put up other content, mostly gaming content, where I will start to talk a little bit more about the industry, as well as I believe that most chefs seem to enjoy gaming. It's sort of a good way to disconnect from reality after a big, long, hot service. So that's sort of my way to connect with the guys from work. I realise that sounded pretty sexual, a long, hot service. After a service, it's a great way to sort of chill out and connect with some of the guys that I work with. Most of them play video games, so I jump on and do that. And I figured, why not incorporate it into this, and why not actually do something productive out of playing video games by making videos and practicing my editing skills and all those sorts of things. So hopefully this gives you sort of a base introduction to who I am, what I'm sort of wanting to do with the channel. I don't just want to be another cooking channel. There's plenty of, as I said, places you can go to find that. I will give you some tips and do some reviews, talk about food, talk about equipment, things that I think are good. This brand of workwear, which is pretty all right. I fucking can't even remember what it was, but sort of talk about some of that, what knives, etc. All the sorts of things that are industry related, and sort of be a bit realistic for you guys, especially if you're just starting out, or even if you've been in the industry for fucking 20 years. I kind of just want to give you guys a good idea of somebody else's perspective, and maybe if you've been in it for a while, you'll sit there going, oh, well, it's not just me, or maybe you're new to the industry, so it'll give you somewhat of an idea of what to expect. As I've said multiple times, nothing is set in stone in this. A lot of it is just my own opinion or things from my own experience, but I will tell you that there's stereotypes within the industry that I will bring up and that you will see. And they do exist, and they've always existed. There's sort of no right or wrong about the industry as well, about how to get into it and what to do it. As I've said sort of many times in this, it's not, it just, having your qualifications isn't actually a requirement. You can do this without it, but in my opinion, you're much better off doing the graft. And I also can promise you, just to touch on that one last little bit, if you've done the graft, and if you walk into a new restaurant and say, yes, I'm a fully qualified chef, then you will get so much more respect from the people that you are working with and for, as well as you will get more adoration from people who are under you, or people who are just coming up as well. If you are able to confidently say that you've done it, having done the graft definitely helps. I definitely give a lot more time to guys who have, and that's just sort of not even on purpose. It's just sort of what naturally happens, I think, because there's a commonality there, and then there's also an understanding that person knows they've done the hard yards. They know how it is. Don't take everything that I say as 100% set in stone. Please just use this as a guide to sort of help you. This is what I'm here for. I guess maybe a recipe book to working in a kitchen, or even in hospitality in general. I'll sort of talk a little bit on front of house as well. Some of the things that get us through is also some of the things that get me through service and busy services. You know, this too shall pass is pretty important to me when I come into sort of a busy long service or a hard period working within the kitchen. It's something always to remember, good to remember, which obviously means nothing good or bad lasts forever. All circumstances are temporary. So keep that in mind when you sort of see you've got 125 booked and it looks like it's going to be a hugely busy evening. This too shall pass. It will end, and you will be looking at the end of it, maybe sitting down having a beer on a milk crate or a ciggy at the end of the shift, whatever your preference is. But it will come to an end and you will be on the other side of it. Thank you so much for listening, watching. However you're absorbing this information, thank you for that. Hopefully it's been entertaining enough. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you would like me to talk about. Any questions, any comments are more than welcome. Please do the things where you subscribe, like, and all that sort of stuff. Apparently that's what you're supposed to say and do. And also, if you enjoyed this, please share it with people that you know, people who are in the industry or thinking of getting into the industry. or anybody that you think might get something from this. And I hope as I move forwards, I'll be able to give you sort of some subject matter and some perspectives and opinions that might be intriguing or interesting to you. So yeah, guys, I hope that you have enjoyed this as much as I have, and please come back and watch the next one whenever that one comes out. I won't necessarily have a schedule, as we are coming into a pretty busy part of the year, but as I do this more and more, it'll get a little bit more fluid and a little bit more natural, and I'll be able to produce stuff that you guys find genuinely interesting and intriguing. And yeah, thank you so much. Enjoy your evening, afternoon, service, etc. Take it easy, chef. Bye.